any graph, table, chart, diagram, whatever it is. There's just one form you need to use, and there's a very specific strategy you need to use for each paragraph. And once you learn that, you're going to see that it's really easy to do the writing task that we have to deal with here. All right, so let's get started. Here are the basic rules that I'm going to give you. I need you to do about 8 to 11 sentences, not lines, sentences. Everybody knows what a sentence is. You need to create 4 distinct and purposeful paragraphs. Each paragraph has a purpose, right? You must have 150 words minimum, and it must be completed in 20 minutes or less. Less than 20 minutes, you have to finish it. Okay. Here are our goals when we are talking about task number 1. These are the things we have to accomplish for the grader. When the grader is looking at our task number 1, if they see these things accomplished, you are going to be able to get a really good score if you've done all the other things that are necessary to be able to get a good score. So, for example, you want to be able to describe what the graph is about in your own words. That's the first thing you want to be able to do. You have to be able to give a general description of what the graph is about. Next, you have to give an overview of the graph. An overview. Here's where you discuss the highest and lowest points in general, the greatest and least amounts. Describe the common things that are in a diagram. All right, so that's what that means by giving a general overview. And then finally, the last thing we have to accomplish is make real comparisons of the details in 2 different paragraphs. We have to look at the major differences and similarities and make comparisons. Don't just tell me what we can just see obviously, right? Make real comparisons of the details, and I'm going to show you how to do that. By accomplishing these goals that I have listed here, you're going to end up with 4 distinct paragraphs, and you're going to be able to get a really good score on the exam because you're giving the grader what they need. Right? That's what it's always about. It's always about giving the grader what they need to be able to give you a good score. Now, how are you graded? I'm going to go into grading a little bit more in another lecture when I go over the grading chart for writing task number 1. But in general, you're graded on your task development, which is how well do you answer the question. You're graded on your coherence, which deals with the organization of your ideas and the connections between your ideas. You're graded on your vocabulary, all right, and we're looking at, academic vocabulary, subject-specific vocabulary, using adjectives, adverbs, synonym language, and of course, you're graded on your grammar, the level of mistakes that you make, and the level of grammar that you're using. So you're graded in these 4 different areas, and it's really important that you understand that. You're graded in these areas, so you have to be able to do well in all these areas to get a really high score. If you understand the question very well, and you're coherent, but your grammar and your grammar and your vocabulary are horrible, you're not going to get a good grade. It's as simple as that. You're just not going to get a good grade, so you can't do that. All right, a couple of things to remember about IELTS task number 1. Don't give your opinion. All right, this is not an opinion essay. I should never see I in your essay. We should never see the letter I. You don't have opinion. Okay, you don't have an opinion. The IELTS task number 1 is a factually based essay. You're only allowed to talk about and utilize the information that's in the graph or the chart or the diagram. Second thing that's really important that some students do is they write too much. They just say, well, I'm going to just talk about every single thing that I see. That's what I'm going to do, talk about every single thing that I see, and they write too much. And it's unorganized and it's not good. Another thing that's very helpful to do is to use sentence variety as much as you can. You show the ability to make compound and complex sentences. I can't stress that enough. Show that ability. Show the ability to write higher level grammar and higher level vocabulary. You have to show it because it's an English test. They're grading your level of English, so you have to show it. All right. Number 4 is very helpful. Develop a plan and stick to it. I'm going to show you how to develop a plan, and you're going to once you see the plan that I use, you're going to be able to implement that same plan and be able to do very, very well. And the fifth thing that is really helpful in terms of getting a really good grade is you have to be able to make sentences that don't have mistakes, right? You can't make simple mistakes, all right? In terms of your articles, your prepositions, just your basic fundamental grammar. Write sentences that don't have mistakes. The more sentences you're able to write where you don't have mistakes, you're going to be able to get a much better score, okay? All right, so those are just some key things to remember. And I will be pointing out some other key points or key things to remember along the way. All right, so in terms of, I told you before that when you're doing this, you're going to be writing 4 paragraphs, okay? 4 paragraphs. Paragraph number 1 is your introduction, okay? Is your introduction. And you're going to tell what the graph is about in your own words. You're going to do this in 1 sentence or possibly 2 sentences maximum. 1 sentence or 2 sentences maximum, that's all. That's paragraph number 1. Then we have paragraph number 2, which is our overview paragraph. Here you're going to tell the reader the highest and the lowest, the greatest or the least, or the common things that you see. Paragraph number 2 is going to be 2 sentences or possibly 3. That's all. 2 or 3 sentences for a general overview. Okay. So those are the first 2 paragraphs. And then in paragraphs 3 and 4, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, I don't have it on here right now. We're going to talk about it. We are going to talk about it a little bit later. Paragraphs 3 and 4 are where we talk about our specific details in terms of comparing them. All right. Some common mistakes that students make is that makes them get a low score. It's very important to know. Paraphrasing. Right, students who copy the question language exactly get severely punished. You can't just look at the question language for task number 1 and copy it as your introduction. All right, you cannot do that. You have to paraphrase. Right, so one common mistake the students make is they don't paraphrase. Another common mistake the students make is they don't have separate paragraphs. They write one big paragraph and throw everything in there. Okay, that shows a lack of organization and a lack of how to properly form a report or essay. All right, and the other mistake that is made in terms of quantity over quality. 150 words is only about 8 to 11 sentences. That's all. That's all it is. All right, it's no more than that. Okay, and sometimes people think, well, if I write a lot, I'll get a better score. For most of you, when you're writing a lot, writing 250, 300 words, all you're doing is showing me more of your mistakes. You're showing me more of your bad grammar, more of your bad spelling, more of your basic sentence formations that you're doing, right? It's better for you to have high quality. You'll get a really good high quality that answers the question completely than to have a lot of quantity of just sloppiness and mess, okay? So we can't do that in terms of common mistakes. Some other mistakes that students make are failure to be specific. They only talk about generalities. They try to describe everything, and also having bad time management. You have to have really good time management to be able to do well at task number 2, because you have to finish in 20 minutes. And if you use the method and strategy that I'm going to show you, you'll finish on time. All right, later on what you can do is go through this preparation checklist for task number 1. Right, this is very helpful in terms of learning how to do task number 1. Here we are talking about paragraph number 3. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Paragraph 3 and paragraph 4 are basically the same. In paragraphs 3 and 4, you're going to be comparing and contrasting the numbers and percentages. Okay. You have these are your specific body paragraphs. And what you're doing is you're looking at a graph or a chart, and you're going to break it into 2 parts. One part is going to be your paragraph 1. The other part is going to be your paragraph number 2. And then for part number 1, you're going to compare specific details in your paragraph. And then for part number 2, you're going to compare specific details in the paragraph.